Welcome back to A View to a Grill. I'm Johnny. Today we're going to compare the S&S Grills kettle to the Weber Performer kettle. Neither company knew I was making this video. I'm going to show you everything, good or bad, about each and give you a full relationship disclosure. Most of the time when you see these comparisons here on YouTube, it's between the original Kettle Premium Charcoal Grill, which has 3 legs, and the Slow and Sear kettle, which has 4 legs and a table. I've always felt like that is the wrong comparison to make because the price points just aren't the same, and it gives the S&S kettle an unfair advantage. The correct comparison would be comparing the Weber Performer Charcoal Grill that has 4 legs and a table and the S&S kettle, which also has 4 legs and a table. And you can see that the Performer Charcoal Grill comes in at $349 and the S&S base model grill comes in at $329, which puts their price point in the same area, therefore making a better comparison. Now, what are my relationships with Weber and S&S grills? Well, I'm an affiliate to Weber Kettle, but they have never sent me anything for free. All the Weber stuff you see on my channel, I've purchased myself. I am also an affiliate for S&S grills. Some of the things you see on my channel I did purchase myself, and others they did send to me. But they have never asked me to say anything about their product or asked me to do any specific video. The purpose of this video is to give you all the pertinent information so that you can make an informed purchase of either product. Now that you know what my affiliate arrangements are with Weber and Slow and Sear, let's get into the comparison. The first thing we're going to look at are the wheels. The Slow and Sear kettle comes with 2 back wheels and they measure at about 7.5 inches. S&S does not provide you with a pair of front wheels. Instead, they rest right on these little black pads. The Weber Performer also has 2 back wheels and they're a little smaller. They come in at about 5.5 inches. The Weber Performer does give you 2 front wheels and they come with locking casters. Now that we've looked at the wheels, let's move up a little and take a look at the storage. The Weber kettle has a storage rack, and the way I have it installed, you have about 8 inches of clearance and the bottom rack measures at about 18 by 25 inches. You can put anything down there that you like. Here I have the Weber Kettle Baskets. The Slow and Sear kettle also has a little storage area. It has about 4 inches of ground clearance and it measures about 17 by 19. So it's a little bit smaller, but there's plenty of space, for instance, to put your Slow and Sear. Now that we've taken a look at the storage, let's move on to the Kettle Legs. The Weber Performer has 4 legs and they're constructed out of this metal tubing that has been painted. Each pair of legs have been bent to form a U shape that is used to support the table as well as the kettle itself. Since a pair of legs has been formed out of one solid tube, it makes for less moving parts, and the Weber Performer is actually pretty sturdy and doesn't wobble much at all. The Slow and Sear kettle also has 4 legs. These legs are made of stainless steel without any paint. Each of the 4 legs are independent and slide right into the kettle itself and secured by pins. Now these legs are not very tight, and since it's 4, it has more moving parts, which means that the entire kettle is kind of wobbly, but not so bad to cause any concern. Since we just talked about the legs, let's move on to Kettle Mobility. The Weber kettle with its 4 wheels, this thing moves and glides around my pavement with ease. I can turn it any direction. I'm not worried at all that this kettle is going to flip over. It's very stable, sturdy, no problems moving it, spinning it in any direction. Also don't have any problem moving this kettle when there's food in it, when I'm actually cooking. Now let's move around the Slow and Sear kettle. The Slow and Sear kettle actually has some weight to it. here I am, I'm pushing it forward using the handle, but you don't want to lift it up too high because it will flip on you. It is kind of clumsy to move. I'm actually putting the table down to see if that makes it any easier, and it did. I'm pushing it forward, pulling it back. You don't want to lift on the handle too high because it will flip on you if you lift it too high. I'm a lot less comfortable moving this kettle around than I was moving the Weber kettle around. Now let's move on and look at the ash collector and vent control. The Weber ash assembly is made out of aluminum, so there won't be any rust. The vent control system is managed by this handle. I like to use the ovals to know how opened or closed the vents are. All the way to the left is closed. Now I'll move it to the second oval from the left. We can then take a look inside the kettle, and you can see that that bottom vent is just barely open with a slight little sliver of air coming through. Now I'll move it to the third oval from the left, and if we take a look inside of the kettle, you can see that it's a lot more open, but not fully opened. And then if we move it to the fourth oval from the left, we'll then take a look inside, and the Weber Performer vents are fully open. Over here all the way to the right, you see the little trash can option, and all you have to do to clear out your ash is grab the handle, move it back and forth, and the ash will fall through the vent holes and into the ash pan. To take the ash pan off, all you have to do is squeeze the handle, remove it from the notch, and it comes out pretty easily. To put it back in, you just squeeze the handle, put it on the two little side hooks, and snap it back into place. For the Slow and Sear kettle, the ash pan assembly is made out of stainless steel. The vent system is also controlled by this little handle to help guide you how open and closed your vents are. Slow and Sear cleverly placed these little triangles that look kind of like their logo. All the way to the left there's an X, and that means your vents are closed. If you move the handle to the first triangle to the right of the X, you open your vent a little. And then if you move it to the second triangle to the right of the X, you're opening it a little more. And then if you move it to the O, you're fully opened. Now to get rid of the used ash, you want to move it from X to X, and that will push your ash into the ash collector. And then to remove the ash collector, you just lift, turn it to the right, and then it'll drop straight down. To put the ash collector back, put it back into the little notch, lift, move it to the left. And it may take you a few times to get that down, but you'll catch on. Now that we've gone over the ash collector and vent control, let's quickly go over the tool hooks. The Weber Performer comes with 3 tool hooks, and the Slow and Sear kettle comes with 2 tool hooks on the handle. Now let's take a look at the tables on both of these kettles. If we measure from the center, the Weber table comes in at about 13 inches by 24.5 inches. The Slow and Sear kettle, measuring from the center, comes in a little over 14 inches by about 12 inches. The Weber kettle table is a lot bigger, but let's see how they perform. Here's a brisket that comes in at almost 16 pounds. The brisket and the tray that it's on easily fits on the Weber Performer table. And not only that, it has room for other stuff, like for my bottle of whatever. From this angle, you can see that I could also put some seasoning and sauces on this table without any issue. We'll give it a little shake, and you can see that it is stable even with stuff on it. And it can support a lot of weight. Here is a 20-pound bag of charcoal. The table can easily handle the weight without any issue. And I'll throw on another 20-pound bag. So a total of 40 pounds on this table, no problem. So here's that same brisket on the Slow and Sear table. You can plainly see that it takes up every part of the table, and if we look at it from this angle, the tray even hangs off the sides. Now here's a 20-pound bag of charcoal sitting on the table, and it's handling it like a champ. But if I were to try to put that second 20-pound bag on there, the kettle would flip. So don't do that. Now let's take a look at the handles. The Slow and Sear kettle does have a front handle, and you can see when I kind of move it around, there is some flex to it. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but the Weber kettle, well, it doesn't have any handles because it doesn't need any handles. Now let's move on to the lid bale. The Weber kettle lid bale works fine. You just slide the lid right into it. And the Slow and Sear lid bale, well, I mean, it works fine too. Slide the lid right into it. You can see here that they both open just as wide as the other. Now let's move on and take a look at the grates and the baskets. The Weber Performer grate is not made of stainless steel. It has this little insert on the center, and that's for all of the accessories that you can purchase to use with your Weber Performer. The Weber Kettle grill grate does not spin. It gets hung up on the tabs. The Weber Performer does come with 2 charcoal baskets. The Slow and Sear has an easy spin grill grate with a large opening for the Slow and Sear. However, the S&S base model kettle does not come with the basket. To get the basket, you're going to have to upgrade to either the Slow and Sear original kettle grill or the Slow and Sear deluxe kettle grill. Now, let's talk about the kettle itself. The first thing we're going to talk about is the headroom in the kettle. So I noticed something, and it was very slight. I put both lids on my outdoor countertop, and it looked like the Weber kettle lid was taller than the Slow and Sear lid. I went and got my level and my square and decided to measure the distance between the center of the lid and the top of the lid. The Weber kettle lid was just under 6¼ inches deep. The Slow and Sear was just under 5¾ inches deep. And you can see that here on the side-by-side comparison with these arrows. The next thing I did was measure from the top of the grill grate to the top of the bowl. The Weber kettle comes in at about 2 inches, and then the Slow and Sear comes in at about 1¾ inches. And then you can really see that here on this side-by-side comparison with the red arrows. Now, if my math is almost correct, that means you're going to get about 3/4 inch more head space on the Weber Performer than you will the Slow and Sear kettle. And you wonder, 3/4 inch, Johnny, what big deal? Well, that could be the difference from getting a ham into the kettle or not. Here's another thing that I noticed about the size. I try to put the Weber kettle lid onto the Slow and Sear kettle, and it doesn't fit. It's about 1/4 inch smaller. You have just a little bit more grill space on the Slow and Sear kettle. Let's talk about the vents. The lid vent on the Weber kettle has a stay cool handle, and it rotates on the lid. It's not the smoothest rotation. And then if you look at it from the side, you can see a little gap in between the vent and the top of the kettle. So it doesn't have the best fit. The lid vent for the Slow and Sear kettle has a stay cooled handle, and it actually sits in a depression in the kettle lid. The rotation is smooth and tight, and that's never a bad thing. The handle on the Weber kettle is large and comfortable, and there's also a heat deflector that it attaches to. The handle on the Slow and Sear, it's actually got some more girth to it, and if you have bigger hands, it probably fit your hand better. There's also additional space between the bottom of the handle and the heat deflector, and the Slow and Sear also comes with a heat deflector. The Weber Performer comes with 2 baskets. One of the things I hear most about the Weber Performer is that the vent and the thermometer are in the wrong place. But they're not in the wrong place if you use the Weber Performer the way it was designed to be used. For the Weber Performer, your heat source, when smoking, you put the baskets on opposite sides of the bottom grate. In the middle, if you want, you can put a drip pan. Then you'll put the grates on, and whatever protein you're cooking actually goes in between your 2 heat sources. When you put your lid on, your thermometer and your vent also go in between your 2 heat sources. In this formation, that gives you an accurate temperature reading for where the thermometer is and proper airflow. Remember, your base model does not come with the slow and sear insert, but if you had one, it would work like this. You would have 2-zone cooking automatically set up. In this case, your left side is your cool zone and your right side would be your hot zone. When you put your lid on, the blank side of the lid goes over your fire and the thermometer and vent go over your cool side and protein, giving you an accurate temperature reading and proper airflow. If you want to set up like I have, you're going to have to get some aftermarket products for your Weber kettle, which would be the slow and sear, a new grate, and an aftermarket thermometer if you want proper temperature readings. Now let's talk about smoking on the kettles. The S&S grill comes already with this little smoke hole. And you're like, well, what do you use that for? Well, you use it for a PID controller. Here is the ThermoWorks bellows that works great with the S&S kettle. It just plugs in to that smoke hole, and then you can see it here on the other side how it clips on. And then you use something like the ThermoWorks signals to control the airflow and temperature of the kettle. Now the S&S kettle also already comes with the hole for your thermometer probes. Since there's a hole, your thermometer probes don't get kinked by the lid. Now if you want to use something like the ThermoWorks bellows for the kettle, you're going to have to modify your kettle. As you can see here, I actually drilled this hole in my kettle, and the bad thing about that is that now the bowl of the kettle is no longer under warranty. Now to close up that hole, I have this little grommet. The grommet helps prevent rust and it keeps the critters out. The Weber kettle does not have a thermometer probe hole. You run your wire right under the lid, and as you can see here, it kind of crimps the thermometer wire a little bit, but I have never damaged a thermometer wire by doing this. Now, a lot of times our decisions are dictated by cost. The base model Slow and Sear, as of July the 9th, comes in at $329, and that is without this slow and sear insert. To get that slow and sear insert, you're going to have to upgrade to either the original kettle grill or the deluxe kettle grill, which is what I have. The Performer charcoal grill comes with baskets, and it's ready to use for what it was designed for out of the box. However, I like to use the Performer with a slow and sear insert. So in order to get that kind of performance, I have to do some modifications to the Weber Performer, and I also need to buy some additional items. You're going to have to get the $349 Weber Performer, the $79.99 grill grates, and the Slow and Sear Deluxe at $104.99, and an aftermarket thermometer like the ThermoWorks Square Dot, and that setup is going to come in at over $600. Now let's take a look at some of the accessories that each company sells. One of the advantages that Weber has is they've been around a long time, and they have come up with just about every accessory you can imagine for their kettle. Slow and Sear is a young company, and they do have accessories that you can purchase for the S&S kettle, just not as many. Now let's take a look, beyond the grill. One thing a lot of people don't know about is the Weber app. If you have a Weber kettle, you just go to the App Store and download it right now. The Weber app provides you a place to where you can register your Weber kettles. You can see all 4 of mine right here on the app. And not only that, if you look at the bottom of the app, you see home, recipes, grilling, and more. You touch recipes, you have access to all of these recipes right inside the Weber app. And then if you decide you wanted to cook one of these recipes, you can click on that recipe. It'll take you to a pre-made grocery list of everything you need for that recipe. As you're shopping, you can check off each one of those as you purchase. It also has this really cool grill methods tile where you can touch it and then use these slides to see how to set up your Weber kettle for different kinds of cooks. As I said earlier, I am an affiliate to both Weber and Slow and Sear. If you like my channel and you want to help support my channel, the best thing you can do for me is to use one of my links in my description to purchase anything barbecue you get. And for everyone who has already done that, and for everyone who is going to do that, I really do appreciate it from right here. Thank you for watching A View to a Grill. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, y'all.